Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Adams, Kentucky Secretary of State and Chair of the Kentucky State Board of Elections. It is 10:02 a.m. and we are convening our regular meeting September 19th, 2023. Let me start by taking the roll. I'll begin here at the board office and then I'll circulate as I see you on the Zoom. Member Lewis.
Yes, good morning. James Lewis, retired county clerk, Leslie County.
Member Lane.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Lane, retired clerk from Ballard County.
And then I'll go on the screen here, Member Chandler.
Ben Chandler, member Woodford County.
Member Skolnick.
Corey Skolnick, member Jefferson County.
Member Sears.
Good morning, Dwight Sears, member Pulaski County.
Member Johnson.
Good morning, Jerry Johnson, member Franklin County.
Member Brangers.
Good morning, Deanna Brangers, member Jefferson County.
Member Brown.
Michael Brown, member Jefferson County.
Well, we have a full house today. Thank you all for being here and we'll get started. So first, can I get a motion to approve the draft minutes of our August 31st meeting?
I'll make that motion.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion, any edits to the draft? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next, approval of County Board of Election replacements. We have replacements in Shelby and Mercer counties. Karen, can you walk us through that real quick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In Shelby County, the Democratic member resigned and so recommended for replacement there is Douglas W. Butler. He is the first name on the list that was submitted by the Shelby County Democrat Executive Committee. Would you like me to take all three or do you want to do them separate?
Let's do Shelby and then do Mercer about that.
Okay, then I'll turn it back over to you.
All in favor of appointing Douglas W. Butler to the Shelby County Board of Elections, please say aye.
Do we do the motion?
Aye.
Again,
Yeah, motion.
yeah, sorry. I can be more explicit about it.
So move.
All right, there we go.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, ayes have it. Okay, and now Mercer.
Okay, in Mercer County, we have the Republican member is a temporary replacement for the Republican member. We've had, all the appropriate paperwork. It's a temporary replacement. A family member is running for mayor in Mercer County, so she is stepping down. And for the temporary replacement for that County Board of Election in Mercer is Brian Steele. Also in Mercer County, the Democratic member has resigned, and for approval, SBE, I would recommend the first name on the list is Keith Reitmeyer for replacement to the Mercer County Board of Elections. And I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Can we get this corrected? There's a typo. It's Reitmeyer. We're missing a T on this graph.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So can we get a motion to appoint Brian Steele as the temporary Republican member of the Mercer County Board of Elections?
I move, Mr. Chairman, I move approval of both changes in Mercer County.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Next, review of and vote on memoranda of agreement for election security fund reimbursement to Wayne County. Is it a typo?
Yes,
We did Wayne
yes.
County last time.
we did.
Yes.
This
yes.
is for Bell and Hancock
Bell and
counties.
Hancock, yes.
Okay, could you
Yes.
describe that for us real fast?
So this is the last, I believe, the last two counties that have bought election equipment and we're still eligible under the SBE security grant funding at $2,500 per precinct. They have bought election equipment and will be using their new election equipment in the November general election, which I will say again, that brings all of our counties, 120 counties, up to voter verified paper trail, which I think is just a wonderful thing that we've had the funding to be able to do that from the General Assembly and SBE to help the counties as well. So Bell has 30 precincts. They are eligible for 75,000, and that is what they have requested. Hancock County has 10 precincts. They are eligible for 25,000, and they have requested 25,000. And I would turn it back over to Mr. Chairman for a motion to approve.
So I will do that, but first I want to note, to Karen's point, what a big accomplishment this is. It's taken almost 4 years now. When we all started, or when I started at least in 2020, we had hardly any counties that had paper ballots, only a handful. And through generous federal funding and through generous state funding, we have now gotten every ballot in the state of Kentucky now on a piece of paper. It's a big deal. And so there's a lot of credit to go around the board, the legislature, the governor, and Congress, and the president for that matter. So this is a very big accomplishment. Can we get a motion to approve these grants for Bell and Hancock counties?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. So next, normally we would have Rachel Pointer with our financial reports. Unfortunately, Rachel has the flu and can't speak above a whisper. And so without objection, I think we'll just table this until the October meeting. Does that suit everybody?
Sounds good.
Similar with KCCA, Stephanie Schumacher, head of the County Clerks Association, informed us she's got a sick child and is not going to be able to join us. So we're also going to have to table that, unfortunately, as well until the next meeting. And that takes us to number 7, Executive Director.
That was quick.
Yeah, you're usually up at 10:12, are you?
Not usually. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I want to mention is today is National Voter Registration Day. It is designated the third Tuesday of every year since 2012. It's a nonpartisan event that is sanctioned by many organizations, National Association, Secretary of States, National State Directors, Election Center. And it's just a way to encourage and make public awareness of voter registration. I know there are some events in Kentucky clerk's offices. I know they have had them, you know, at a few of the colleges in the past week leading up to today. So hopefully it'll be another successful day. We had one last year's. We registered quite a few people and well over what our typical daily registrations are. So that's, you know, truly encouraged, and we want everybody to get out and register to vote. And I'll just remind the public that voter registration in Kentucky closes on Tuesday, October 10th at 4 p.m. your local time. So we encourage everyone to get your registration in or updated should you need to. The e-poll book decommissioning of the 10X poll books is now complete. The paperwork has been submitted, so we're glad to have that behind us. And we just need to decommission them or remove them from our inventory. That's our last step, and that will be taking place soon. So those are safely decommissioned, and we do have, like I said, the appropriate paperwork to have that done. Reapportionment is still ongoing. We are starting to receive some of the county's reapportionment paperwork. Of course, you know, we will be reviewing that, but nothing will be, well, not so much approved, but nothing will take place until after the general election, any of the movement of precincts or whatever. So Richard's the lead on that. If he has anything to add, I would ask him to add anything, but,
We have about 1/6 of the counties have sent their finalized paperwork and GIS shape files into us. We are collecting all GIS shape files for several projects that we're looking forward to doing in the future, and so it seems to be going pretty well. We're working with the ad district offices and the GIS state agency is working with our IT staff a little bit, so we're getting through that.
I have a question on that. So I know Grant County reduced their number of precincts to really reflect more what they actually do when they run their elections, which is to have vote centers along I-75. Have you, in what you've seen so far, have you seen other counties take a similar approach of having the number of precincts really match what they actually offer?
A few of them are going ahead and consolidating some precincts down.
Okay.
We haven't gotten too many in, so I don't know a big number yet, but they are starting to move that way.
I think that makes our job easier when we oversee the plans. If we see a whole bunch of precincts at a number of locations, that throws us off a little bit, but if they have a number of precincts that matches the number of locations, then it's less of a warning signal.
so that we're, working through that process, and Richard's doing a great job of answering questions for counties, because so many of our clerks have not done this process before, so. But we're here to try to help them, so. Just a couple of other things about dates coming up. We're 49 days until November 7th. So a lot of activity going on at SBE, and I'm sure at your office as well. And of course, the clerks are many deadlines for them leading up to the election. And so I know that's probably one of the things that Stephanie probably would have talked about, is all the things that are coming up and for them to do. The absentee request portal opens this Saturday, September 23rd, and it will close 14 days prior to the election, which is October 24th. And then, of course, 6-day in-person excused absence starts, and following that are 3 days of early in-person no excuse voting, and then, of course, election day. So come October, we'll remind the public about the dates coming up. And I will say that now the polling locations are on our website. We've worked with the clerks to make sure that the times and places and addresses are correct. So I believe that is now accessible much easier with a drop-down menu for the public to be able to locate where their polling locations are. And just a reminder, voter registration, it is National Voter Registration Day. Registration in Kentucky closes at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, October 10th. And I believe that concludes my report.
And so the voting locations, those are at elect.ky.gov.
Yes.
And they're also at govote.ky.gov. Is that right?
Govote.ky.gov, yes, and elect.ky.gov, and you can go to where it says find my polling location. They would just do the drop-down menu for your county, and everything should be there, including drop boxes and where you would do 6-day and in-person no excuse voting. So,
Okay.
Aaron,
yes.
I have a question about the early voting. How do you have some idea about what counties are doing in terms of advertising for early voting, for the 3 days of early voting? It seems to me that we'd all be better off if we can encourage those 3 days to be used a little bit more heavily. It would take a great deal of pressure off of election day.
I agree, Member Chandler, and we have, I know that the clerks are, what I've heard at KCCA, they are encouraging their counties to do early voting. It's my understanding that the parties are also working to advertise and encourage early voting. And come the next board meeting, maybe we'll try to see, we'll have another KCCA meeting and maybe get a sense of what the clerks are trying to do. But I think the clerks would like to have more people do early voting. I'll defer, we have a clerk here, so but I do think, I agree, it would be good for the total election day process, the cycle, to have more early voting.
Well, we're in the early stages of this early voting process and people are not yet comfortable with it. And it seems to me the more encouragement we can give to it and the more efforts toward letting people know that it's available, the better off we'll be. And I don't know what we can do as a board to encourage them to advertise, or if we've got any funding or potential funding source to help with the advertising. But I think so many people don't think about it really, and they don't think until election day to go vote. And if we can just get them in a little bit of different mindset to vote in one of those 3 days, it really would help.
But Member Chandler, I 100% agree with you. I do intend, if I'm around next year, to ask the legislature to give us some additional funding specifically for the same thing that we did so well in 2020, which was nonpartisan advertising on television, digital, bus benches, everything, just saying that voting early is just like voting on election day. In 2020, 45% of voters voted in person early. In the last election, 15% voted early. If we can get, again, it's people's choice. That's the whole point of elections, is making choices. But if we make sure that they're aware of this option, again, in a nonpartisan way, I think voters of both sides will take advantage of it. If you look at what other states that have enacted early voting have done, it takes a few cycles to catch on. But in Tennessee, for example, or Ohio, really all our neighboring states, they've had early voting for years. And at first, it wasn't really utilized as much. But over time, it catches on. And in those other states, about half the vote gets cast early and half gets cast on election day. And that relieves, to your point, a lot of pressure on election day on the clerks, on the poll workers.
Yeah, it has to be normalized. And I'm sure it does take a little time for people to get used to it, but maybe we can push that time up a little bit by advertising a little bit more.
I don't think there's any resistance to it. And one thing I'm really gratified to see is there's no partisan rejection or endorsement of it. It's utilized basically in the same proportions politically as the overall voter registration. What we saw in November, there was a slight plurality of Republicans than Democrats and independents, and that more or less matched the registration numbers. So this is not a model where Democrats love it and Republicans hate it, or vice versa. Everyone likes it equally. It's just we want more voters to use it on both sides.
Right. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't like it. It gives you the opportunity to go vote and have your lines be shorter.
Yeah, it's a win-win. I remember Lewis had something.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, we got Jeff Hancock, Franklin County Clerk in the audience. What do you think about?
Did you want to make some comments, Jeff?
I would, but I'd like to make a couple of comments about a couple of things. So I'm just going to wait until the end, or whenever you'd like me to join.
Do you want to come up?
Is it okay?
Oh, yeah, of course.
First and foremost, thank you all for letting me come to the table. I apologize about showing up late, but I was in another meeting and I wanted to make sure I got up here today. Member Chandler, I think that's a great question, but the biggest answer to your question is funding. I mean, if we continue to ask the counties to fund something that we just can't afford to fund, it's not going to happen. There are no standards for funding of advertising. And as a group, I would like to think that the County Clerks Association, the KCCA, is fundamentally a very conservative group. We conserve our funds. We do our best to get them back to the taxpayer. We do our best to get them back in excess fees back to our counties so they can be well spent. So we're not, without direction and without any other form of funding, we're doing our best with doing what we can to educate our public. I'm allocating about $3,100 a cycle and nothing but advertising for my early voting. But I see the benefit in taking away and getting rid of any hassles that can happen, especially like we saw. And I want to reiterate this. What you all saw in 2021 was a long ballot. And the long ballot could have been, the lines could have been taken care of if early voting was more readily utilized. So I'm hoping that it picks up. I'm hoping that we'll find funding. Along with a lot of these new things that we're doing. We are the gold standard for the United States in elections, and most of that's because of the people sitting in this room. People look at what the state of Kentucky is doing because they trust our integrity. They trust that there's 120 people out there doing it to the best of their abilities and making sure they're getting out in front of their constituents. I'm begging you guys to put some rules and regulations in for what the vote centers look like. Don't allow us to guess at them anymore because it's not fair to the clerks. They need guidance. If we want to continue to approve plans and approve what's going on, you have to give guidance. And that starts with you guys. You're the Board of Elections. We're going to go in a direction. We're always good followers. We might stomp our feet. We may cuss a little bit. We may cry a little bit. We may not like what's going on at that point in time. But guys, we're rule followers. We like to do things right. None of us want the egg on our face, and we definitely don't want to leave it on your face. We have a huge election coming up, not only this year, but next year. And without some guidance, somebody's going to fail. And one county failing, it doesn't matter how big or how small, one county failing is not acceptable. If you don't give us guidance in what you want to see in these election centers, somebody's going to fail. So that's and let me also say this. This is Jeff Hancock, Franklin County Clerk, saying this. This is not the KCCA. This is me coming because I care about what happens across the entire Commonwealth. So thank you all for your time today. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Member John, oh, I'm sorry. Member Lewis, then Member Johnson.
Have y'all as clerks discussed parameters or limitations on the vote centers that you would like for us to know your thoughts on?
I think it should be a working group.
Yeah.
James, you've known me since I came in green behind the ears.
Yeah.
I think it should be a working group. I think it should be somebody from a large county, small county, Eastern County, Western County, Southern County. So we have direction. Somebody from the Board of Elections, somebody from the Secretary of State's office. What do you want? What do we want to see? It's all a numbers game.
Yeah.
But my numbers don't work in Jefferson.
Right.
Jefferson's numbers don't work in Owsley.
Right.
Owsley's numbers don't work in Robertson. But there is a formula. There is a standard out there. I think I've hit the sweet spot, but I'm not certain on that. I would still be willing to see the guidance, but that guidance can't come 4 weeks before a primary, a presidential primary. These guidances have to come in December and January. So if any equipment needs to be ordered, it can be ordered today. So the guidance that we need needs to happen a whole lot sooner than later.
So we already have a working group that KCCA and the board and my office are all part of.
Yeah.
We could have a separate group on this, or we could join this as one of the issues that we have in that group. I don't have a preference, but I think your point's well taken.
Well, I would think Jeff's correct on the working group. Smaller but diverse group of people generally are more effective, and especially on time frame.
Yeah.
I think it get things accomplished. Personally, I think Jeff's idea is sound on the working group.
So do you all think,
I agree. I think it's a very good idea.
do you all think this should be a working group to prepare legislation or to prepare a reg for the board to implement?
It depends on what's needed. I'm not sure what the board can do within the bounds of the statutes right now to accommodate what needs to be done. I guess that's the first thing we need to know. What changes have to be made legislatively that will take care of the needs that are out there for these centers to make them work as they should and efficiently. That's why probably the working group needs to get started, formulate what is needed, and then evaluate that against what the statutes will allow for things that need to be changed. Then you go to the General Assembly and get those changes made.
Well, it seems to me that this is a very timely request because we have, obviously, this is a new thing that we have done in elections in Kentucky, and we've only been doing it 2 or 3 cycles. And the good news is we've got some history. We've got some evidence of what works and what might not work on the ground in different counties and in different circumstances. So it seems appropriate to me that we put together a work group just on this issue. This is a big enough issue to warrant its own group, in my view, and put that together. And the first thing that group ought to do is identify the issues. Identify what needs to be done and whether it can be done by reg or whether it needs to be done by statute. Obviously, if you can do it by reg, we can do it pretty quickly. If you need to go the statutory route, then we've got a whole different process involved. But I'd be very much in favor of that. And Jeff, thank you for bringing that up.
Jeff, would you want us to go to KCCA to get this together?
I think that's the appropriate thing.
Okay.
I mean, the KCCA, obviously, we have a president, we have a board, and it's their board to determine what all the clerks do. So the KCCA would be the appropriate place to put that together.
Okay. Well, I think offline we'll get that in motion. Okay. Does that work for everybody? Do any members want to be on this, or do you want the staff to handle? Member Johnson?
Yeah, I was just going to comment to a couple of the things once you get done here. I'd be happy to serve on a group if I could be helpful, or I'm happy for any of the others to do it if it's staff or whomever. So, but I do want to address Jeff if I can. I happen to live in this county. Jeff's one of the absolute best clerks that I've ever worked with or been around. He does an outstanding job at running elections. I'm not going to say flawless because that's going to jinx him, but it's as near flawless as possible. And I also want to commend you, Jeff, on bringing this forward. I've been, along with other members, have been talking about how unfair it is for counties to be expected to create county plans when there's just no parameters, no expectations. I mean, it's very subjective. And so I think this is a great time to talk about this, come together as a group and make recommendations. And to Ben's point, I think we talk about what we need to have accomplished, and then we can talk about whether it's, by statute or reg or whatever the case may be. I think it's extremely timely. Next year is going to be big. And so again, just thanks for the great job you do. And I'm happy you're my clerk. So.
Thank you.
Well, we'll connect offline and we'll figure out who wants to be on this, but thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah,
glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Anything else under number 7?
No.
Okay.
Conflict.
So I'm going to push other business until after executive session, just in case there is business that comes to us based on what we discuss in the executive session. I'm not sure that will happen, but it's possible. So number 9, we'll confirm that our next meeting date is Tuesday, October 17th at 10 a.m. And I'm told that we don't have a security issue per se to discuss in closed session, but we do have litigation to discuss. So can I get a motion to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8.10.1C?
So move. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?